Everyone, thanks for joining us today. This is how top mortgage pros leverage artificial intelligence for success, presented by the National Mortgage News. First, let's start with some introductions. Jason?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jason Frazier. I am the EVP of Growth for Revaluate, and I'm excited to be here with my friend Chris at Revaluate.
Awesome, thanks so much. I'm Chris Drayer, CEO of Revaluate, and we identify likely movers using artificial intelligence. And with that, we're going to go straight into the first poll, and that is, in your work or with your company, do you currently work with artificial intelligence as a product or a service? And we'll give you a few seconds to respond. Yes, no, or unsure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the answers are, because some people are working with AI and don't actually know that they're working with AI. And also it depends on everyone's definition of AI, and I know we'll get into that.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, we'll use the broad version or definition.
Yep.
I think for this, if you're questioning whether you are or not.
Yep.
Looks like about half of the respondents are in so far, so we'll give you another couple seconds here. All right, very good. Shall we go?
Yeah.
Here we go. Jason, you want to read through that?
Yeah, so we got almost 42% says yes, 43% says no, and almost 50% says they're not sure.
Yeah, right down the middle.
Yeah, interesting.
Not a whole lot we can glean from that, but I guess there's some people on this call that are already using it and looking for additional ways to probably to grow. And I'd say the no's are probably the people that are trying to kind of feel things out still.
Yeah, it'd be interesting because a lot of, if I'm thinking about mortgage operations, not just technology operations, but like sales op, marketing ops. There tends to be something that you're working that has a little bit of AI in it, right? So I think as we continue to talk, people will start to understand that a little bit more.
So wanted to start off, and I think the first time that I was aware, pun intended, of artificial intelligence was like the Terminator movies, and I'm old, so that was cool and awesome at the time when I was very influenced by things. And it was really scary and concerning at that time. But that's not really what AI is today.
No, it's definitely not as scary as T-100 coming down and trying to hunt you before you were born. It's definitely definitely a different type of AI. But yeah, I mean, obviously, just like with anything, right? Any movie or anything that's new, obviously there's a bit of look, it's just in our DNA. We're always afraid or trepidatious about something that is not normal or not that something that we're used to, right, or comfortable yet. And as a reminder, as we go on today, Chris and I like to keep these things engaged. So if you have questions, just remember that you can ask questions in the chat, and we'll we find breaks, we'll talk to them, and then also we have Q&A at the end.
Yeah, definitely keep it. Ask your questions as we're going along, and we'll try to get to those as they come in, for sure.
And hopefully everyone has seen the Terminator or at least heard about it. Otherwise, my references went completely. Like, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah, no, that was on point. But so when I don't know about you, Jason, but when ChatGPT came out, I wasn't scared. I was blown away and totally amazed. And I'm in the business, and it still was like, wow, this is really a leap forward, I guess, is the way that I think about it.
Yeah, because, look, we've been hearing about AI for a long time, right? And in my view, a lot of the stuff that we refer to even up until now as AI really isn't AI. It's just simple programming. And you could say, well, yeah, of course it's programmable, it's programmed, but it's more of like, hey, here's a spreadsheet of answers. I'm asking questions, and it pulls from that data source to answer the questions. And that was kind of pushed over as AI, which isn't AI in any sense of the definition, in my opinion. But I think when ChatGPT came out, to me, and look, I hate using it's a cliche. and look, I can't think of a better term for it, but it was a game changer. Looking at it, what it could do, how it did it, the speed, it really was a game changer of AI. And then it's only grown like wildfire. It's one of the the fastest growing app, if not the fastest growing app ever.
I think it is
and by far, it wasn't like, oh, close, but it was. I mean, it really crushed any type of data when it comes to daily users and usage, and it broke pretty quick. I remember, it took me probably like 2 days to get on because it was just inundated with
slammed.
people, and so it's just and it's great to see how far it's come since then. And just all the different use cases with it, and something I talk about quite a bit about how to use ChatGPT and other AI tools, and it's great. It's definitely a time saver.
We're going to get into more of that kind of later in the conversation, and I want to hit on in a couple of slides from now. I'm going to get into some of the kind of background and history of how we got to this point, which is, I mean, it's a lot longer ago than T3. Or the T3 than Skynet, but let me just advance to here. So this is something that you and I have talked about before. The same lure that we used to attract business previously is maybe still working, but you're catching a much smaller fish, right? You're not getting as many, and it's not working as efficiently as before. And obviously there's outside forces that are pushing on us, like interest rates and affordability. But why is kind of now, you and I were chatting about this before, why is now the time for a change, and what is significant about timing now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, when we're talking about change, we always say that. We've been talking about this for over a decade, about our industry having the change and whatnot. So what we tend to use at Rebel IQ is the term is evolve, right? Like, we have to evolve, and not just change, but evolve to the way that we did it. It's one thing to, I look at it always, everything is back to a process, regardless of whatever, the sales process, operations process, they're all processes, right? To me, is what we tend to do is we try to make a bad process better, right? And I won't use the analogy that I tend to use in these situations, but the point is that if something's bad, okay, I'll do it, right? So it's basically, and this is something that goes back from my engineering.
All I had to do was kind of raise an eyebrow, and it
raise an eyebrow. Like, all right, I'll say it. Well, I won't be as dramatic about it, but
okay. All right.
It goes back to my engineering days, and it's basically saying, look, if you have a bucket and you put bad stuff in the bucket, you could add as much ice cream as you want, it's still going to taste pretty bad, right? And
I understand the analogy. Yeah,
so that's the thing with bad processes, right? Like, I don't want to make, and we shouldn't as an industry make bad process better. We should try to reinvent the process to make it different and then better from the ground up. And I think, and look, and if no one learned that lesson from the last 3 years, then you haven't been paying attention, right? The reason why a lot of us are in this situation really isn't due to rates, right? Obviously, that's a huge driver. Rates, affordability, inventory, all of those play a part. So don't make me sound, but as far as the contraction and the quickness of how things go bad for some of these lenders and loan officers was because of doing the same thing over and over again, and just basically rinse and repeat, thinking that we don't have to evolve with the times. This is something I've been talking about for years, and now it's the chickens are coming home to roost, right? And that's a lot what we're seeing. So it's not just enough to change and be like, hey, like, we'll change with the times. You got to lead it. You got to be a change creator. Right. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about. That's why it's different, because look, if and we talked about this before we went live, is that, look, if it was up to the industry, we wouldn't have cars, we would have faster horses. Right. Yeah. And we need to have cars, right? We need to evolve. We need to do things different, so we could get out of this endless cycle of doing the same thing all the time. And then when markets contract, we do the same thing. Shooting people out of a cannon, layoffs and stuff like that. Lenders go out of business, M&A action goes up, and then things get better. Then we just go all in on just servicing that, but don't actually ever evolve and do things different.
Yeah. Do you think that we're going to see the classic 80-20 split of people adapting and changing quickly, or the early adopters in this case? Or do you think, I mean, based on the numbers on this call from the first poll, if 50% of the people that are sure are already doing something, that's pretty striking. Or is it just the audience that we're talking to is educated and smart? I'm pandering. They're beautiful, amazing people that have their stuff together.
Yeah, but make sure you add that in there. No, I think, look, it's good to see that people have interaction with it, right? But it's again, it goes down to, one thing that I, as a coach that I always talk about is that our industry is, it to me is the 80-20 rule personified, right? Like and that's why when you look at pretty much any lender, 80% of the production is done by 20% of the loan officers, right? And any given lender, any lender that I've ever consulted with or worked for, that's always been the case without question. Right. And so I think I think if you look at kind of the contraction that we've had, the amount of people that came into the industry when everything was great over the last couple of years, and then the people leaving the industry, people not renewing their licenses, is that you have to get to that point of, 80-20 just isn't good enough anymore. Otherwise, you're going to, again, going back, you're going to go through the cycle over and over again. You need to figure out how to decrease that delta between the producers and the non-producers, and look, that's always going to be the case. You're always going to have that, just in any sales, vertical. But ultimately, in our industry, it doesn't have to be that way if you can find, that good foundation to build upon.
Good foundation. I like that. It's like you knew what slide was next.
I know, it's amazing.
Remarkable. So the foundation and the tools and the data obviously are critical to your go forward plan. And one thing that we at Revaluate really focus on is the quality of the input relating directly to the quality of the output. And you have to be based on that solid, good foundation in order to get moving forward. And I want to illustrate that point, I want to kind of go back in time, and I want to tell 3 quick kind of stories about the background of artificial intelligence that sort of illustrate this point. And those of you that are history nerds like me will appreciate that, this direction that I'm going to go. And if you really despise history, it'll be brief, I promise. But maybe you'll even get something out of this. So Lloyd's of London was started in a coffee house in London. And it was essentially the sailors would come, so it's a big insurance company, right? So the sailors would come back in and they'd be at the coffee house hanging out and telling stories about what worked and what didn't work and where problems were, and pirates and all sorts of things. And this was the input data that allowed Lloyd's to begin to insure different organizations, different ships and different captains, and say that captain is going to be reliable, that shipping company is going to be a risk. And they were doing predictive analytics, obviously the beginning of artificial intelligence. And you had to have good data, and they were getting it at the source in order to make those predictions so that they could build what became a massive, massive business. So there again, there's your foundation. You have to go to the source to get the good data and have quality inputs to be able to make quality outcomes. Had you heard that analogy or that story before, Jason?
No, I haven't.
All right. This next one, this is a kind of a head scratcher. All right. So World War II bombers. So we're fast forwarding a couple hundred years, but World War II bombers were getting shot down over Europe, and they didn't really know why, except they were, being shot out of the sky. And they wanted to put more armor on the airplanes. And you can't put armor on the entire airplane because it would be too heavy and wouldn't fly.
Yep.
So they started having the guys at the airfields, when the planes returned, use this damage anatomy chart, and they would actually go and plot the bullet holes on these drawings, and then mash them up so that they'd have this data to say, here's where the damage to the airplanes was. So on this, the image on the right there, you can see where the bullet holes were on the planes, and all of the black area is where the bullet holes were. They put armor, perhaps counterintuitively, on the two white ovals. So that is sort of a head scratcher, but that's where the armor needed to be for the planes that didn't return.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to take that data and know how to interpret it and work with it. And if you've got that foundation, then you can go forward. Now, fast forward to you guys today and your businesses. The data that we look at on a daily basis from lenders, from real estate folks, it's absolutely terrible. Like, it is a dumpster fire. In fact, 1/3 of the contacts that we look at are missing data, have outdated data. It's just absolutely awful. 1/3. So if you think about all the dollars spent on marketing and advertising and sales calls, 1/3 of that is also wasted because you're reaching out to prospects or contacts and trying to connect with people that you don't have the correct info for. So the key here is that source data is key to making the right cake or whatever you're baking, right? You need to have that high quality input data in order to have high quality output. And at Revaluate, what we refer to that is a full contact record. So that's 4 parts. That's a full name, a physical address, an email, and a phone number. And once you have all 4 of those parts, that's what we call a full contact record. And now you're able to do all of the marketing. You're able to communicate with your prospects and clients correctly and get feedback and do analysis and talk to them about their properties rather than someone else's property. On the real estate side of the coin, they have a big problem because I'll ask you about this, Jason, but on the real estate side, it's the portals, right? So Zillow and Realtor.com, those leads 100% of the time lack the home address because they're like buyer leads. Is that something that's common on the mortgage side as well?
Yeah, generally because where we're getting our sources from lead, and it depends on where you're getting them from. But commonly, if you're co-marketing on with an agent on Zillow or Realtor.com, or if you're doing age leads, or even if you're buying consumer direct leads, you tend to not have the address, right? Because from someone that's done high-end lead generation, consumer direct marketing, that's another obstacle for getting that data, where you really just want name, good email, and good phone number, right? And then the address tends to, I've done it at times and looking at the data, and people will do it, but it tends not to be a great conversion question to have there.
Yeah, it's a quality versus quantity play, right? That's the... Okay, so then I wanted to share what we do with that, and I only have one slide on this, but what we at Revaluate do with that data, once we have good quality information, is we're looking to predict who is most likely to move in the next 6 months. And we look for the triggers that cause that, which are life events. You can make fun of me if you'd like. We call them the data Ds. It's super cheesy marketing speak. But death, divorce, diapers, diamonds, diplomas, downsizing, discretionary income, the daily grind, dumpsters. There's a lot of Ds that are life events that cause people to move. That's the input data that we use in our equations, in our artificial intelligence, to determine who is most likely to move.
Yeah, and that's important because I want everyone to understand that, because here if you look back the last few years, right, the market did the heavy lifting for us. Rates, how people moving, selling, all of that stuff, they did the heavy lifting for our production, right? We didn't really have to go out there and do a lot. And so refis were, you couldn't kick a can without hitting a refi. And then purchase business was good. Obviously, that's why we did back-to-back years of double the normal production in a given year, right? The thing when it comes to life events is you have to that's only really what you're marketing to now, right? Because people aren't incentivized right now to unless they really need to, right, to sell, right? Because what could be holding them back could be like, look, I could sell, make a cash out on what I feel is my investment over the last 6-10, however long they've been in the house, and then go to purchase another property, but knowing like, oh, now that I'm sitting on this 2.5-3% rate, now I'm going to be looking at 6.25 or 7 or more, depending on where you're going. You're going to be sitting on a higher rate, right? So that's going to be stopping them. And so life events have always been important. The problem is that if you don't have something like Revaluate or another predictive analytics engine to plug into, you don't know when life events happen. And from a marketer standpoint, what I always say is your marketing starts before the consumer even knows who you are. And the only way to be first in thought, because I don't like the term top of mind, but like the only way to be first in thought to a consumer when a life event happens is to be there before it happens, right? And so the only way to be there is to put your marketing out there, to fill your database with to have more conversations, do all of that. Problem is our industry is we are such a instant gratification, instant ROI, loans should be going in my pipeline and closing within 30 days type of mentality that people don't play the long game, right? And this is a long game market. And this is a long game industry too, if you're smart, right? And you play the numbers. And so again, this is why this is very important. It may seem like just a small slide, but having that visibility into the life events gets you there ahead of everyone else that is generally just putting out the same content over and over again. Top of funnel, it's actually all three, right? When you think about it, it's beginning, middle, and bottom of funnel, because everyone else, I always equate it to this analogy is like, right now there is nobody around you, right? Like you're fishing at the best pier right now and there's nobody else because the weather's bad. So everyone's at home waiting for the weather to get better, right? But just in case you didn't know, hope is not a strategy. Waiting is not a strategy, right? And so you could do all of this stuff now with very little competition going after it, even though there is very like paid ads and stuff like that. A lot of people are playing those games. But the point is right now, if you really are hustling for this stuff, you can fill your database and have those quality conversations and get there before everyone else does. Because guess what? When conditions do get better, when the sun comes out, rates come down or whatever, even though I tend to argue that rates coming down doesn't necessarily mean like all of a sudden everyone's going to start, buying and selling. In fact, it's probably going to run into that same issue that we ran into, a year and a half ago, where cash offers were king and everyone was trying to do the appraisal gap and everything else. Is that you have to have this, right? You have to have this, otherwise, all of a sudden everything's equal. Everyone's playing the same game you are. Now is your chance to get ahead.
It's a new way to look at data segmentation, right? We've been segmenting in lots of different factors previously. Now we can segment by, who's most likely to move, and that's being driven by those life events that are happening. We've got a few questions that have come in. Should we pause the conversation and go that direction?
Actually, I think the question that came in would be good with the next poll. So if you want to go into the next one, because I think it goes into a concern, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So what are your concerns about implementing AI? One of the questions that came in from Rachel was regarding banning ChatGPT, which again, always immediately to like the top of the list. Like, let's ban it, right? Let's not think about it. Let's ban it, right? We tend to do that for all that, And look, I come from an SEC regulated industry, and so I know all about having major regulations and control over your systems, your tech, your communications, all of that. So the question is banning ChatGPT because of hackers, and look. Once there is no gold standard of security any longer. It used to be RSA tokens, right? If you guys remember that, or having the cards that had the algorithmic numbers change,
Sure.
Every 60 seconds or 120, whatever it was, go through code and password, right? They were the gold standard of security. When they got hacked and when that basically brought the walls down, there is no safe harbor for any of this stuff, right? So now it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be concerned about it. It doesn't mean that you just throw caution to the wind. But what I'm saying is that there are ways to leverage it by using common sense and being smart about it. And so just like with any public system, right? Because here's the thing, guys, like if you really want to secure yourself, then get off the internet, right? Don't go on social media, don't post any content, don't do any of that stuff, because that is a huge security, concern, right? It just is. Right. And look, it's what you put it, because companies do. Like if you're using ChatGPT and you're putting like proprietary IP in there and whatnot, creating code and all that other stuff, yes, you are susceptible to creating an avenue to your own business of being, whether it's getting that IP out there or having that code being generated somewhere else or some other term. So you just have to be smart on how you're using it. Hackers absolutely, I mean, this was months ago, hackers were able to jailbreak GPT, inject their own prompts and whatnot. Now, it doesn't go directly. Now, yes, if there was a way, and look, it's a roundabout way, so it's not just like you use ChatGPT, all of a sudden you're hacked. But it's if you're using it, you're calling out to a website that is injecting those prompts, you're calling information from that and all of these. That's why I'm glad it doesn't, like, you don't have to have it connect to website to get data. But it's just like any new technology, right? And I was going to bring this up later when I got to my part, right? Because there is going to be some questions around that, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. But it's trust but verify, right? Like trust the system but verify, right? And you just can't take everything that it says. Right. I'm not really worried about, some of the other issues that people have. But yeah, this absolutely will be used. Look, everything. It's hard to find anything new like this that hasn't been turned or used for bad purposes. Right. Like, malicious purposes.
Right to evil. Yeah. Okay. A couple more seconds on the poll here, and then we'll close it down. So if you haven't answered, go ahead and throw an answer in there about your concerns implementing artificial intelligence. But yeah, people are going to take it and they're going to try to make money with it. They're going to try to break it, and they're going to try to take advantage of unsuspecting other people all the time. So having an insurance policy helps out a lot in those types of situations. All right, here we go. Let's see how this came out. Accuracy. Interesting.
Yeah, I would have said that out of anything, because I mean, from a cost now again, it just depends, right? Because there tends to be a little bit of a mortgage tax whenever you do anything new technology wise, because you have to tend to connect to no like shade being thrown on anybody, but I'm just saying that we tend to have a very old code base and legacy systems in a lot of this stuff, and honestly, that's one of the reasons why these things get open to attacks more often than usual. So the price cost would be one, because generally, like, even though like the normal market for a different technology product anywhere else, any other vertical, you get in the mortgage and there's like a 20%, 30% like upcharge on like what it costs to implement. So cost obviously, but accuracy, absolutely. Just like with ChatGPT, people are doing these things, asking it questions and then taking it verbatim as gospel. And you just can't do that. Right. And just with any AI tool, you again, trust but verify. Accuracy definitely would be, if I was choosing anything on this list. Sure. Security is a concern of mine. I'm an old. My background is in engineering, and I am a certified security professional. And it expired a long time ago, right? We're talking about over a decade ago.
I was going to call you. I've got questions.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not taking any calls on IT security any longer. But so security is always at the forefront of anything that I do. But accuracy, absolutely accuracy. I would have chosen the same.
Yeah, and the simplicity, ease of use thing, when we think about ChatGPT, extraordinarily easy to use, right? And there's some nice little, here's what you should do to get this type of output type memes and things out there already. But I think when we think of other artificial intelligence, like what's available to the industry, it's got to integrate. It's got to be API driven. It's got to be super slick and easy. And once it's in there, it's got to do if this, then that triggers to set up automation. So I'm a big fan of going down that path too. But we did sort of believe that accuracy was going to be the question here. So, or the response that people would come up most with. So we at Revaluate had to kind of tackle that head on because initially when we started doing this 9 years ago, AI was still foreign to a lot of people. And so we actually had to have a third party come in and validate our accuracy. And that worked extraordinarily well because then we had a white paper that we could point to. And I think that it made a big difference in how we were able to approach those conversations when you have a third party validating the accuracy. So whenever you're looking at other opportunities out there for implementing artificial intelligence, go for the accuracy question and ask them about third party validation. We also do stuff like we survey our customers on, hey, did we get that one correct or did we get that one wrong? And that continues, we continue to see up ramps on those. For example, the white paper that we did a few years ago, our accuracy of identifying likely movers in a 6-month period was 19.5%. And our survey data currently from our customers on a rolling 180-day average is 34%, 34.34 or so percent. That's probably a little bit biased by the people that are filling out that data, but that is, they're happy with the service they're doing it. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I get it. Any other thoughts on kind of the accuracy side of the coin?
No, I think it plays into what we just kind of, frame that with, it just can't be, once, just like with anything, right? Like, is there, if you look at different sources, like a data, you like to have 3 sources when you're quoting, like whether it's a news story or something like that, you want to verify, right? You want to verify that this is right data, and you want to have multiple sources because you just don't want to have one single source of truth when it comes to predictions, which is what we're really predictive analytics, right? You want to have multiple sources to feed into what you're gauging.
I saw an article. I don't remember the platform, so I apologize. I don't have the source, but it was that here were 5 AI companies that have launched since the launch in the mortgage space, since the launch of Chat GPT. And you go, okay, that's awesome. I'm all for it. Let's help those guys out, but we got to get to that accuracy number. That's going to be really key to implementing into the business. Okay, so top of funnel, we get good data in, we identify who's likely to move in the next 6 months. What's the blueprint for kind of how we're supposed to proceed?
Yeah, and look, that's, when we're talking about data, right, I can tell you from a marketing perspective, even from a technologies perspective, but from a marketing, as a marketer, I want to have good data, right? I don't want to have us, and unfortunately, I see it all too often, is CRMs with a lot of garbage, bad phone number, and look, that hurts everything when you're doing that, right? If you want to segment, more personalized information, that type of stuff. And I'll get into your question, Paul, here in a second, but is you want to have clean data, right? Because if, as a marketer, I'm being engaged by my results, right? Or I'm being, judged by my results that I have, right? If emails are bad, phone numbers, names are spelled wrong, that type of stuff, like the more dirtier the data, the more dirtier the results, right? And so having good data and clean data is paramount, especially now. And if you look at the most successful companies in the world, right? If you look for the people, and also let's just say the last 10 years, right? What companies have really taken, I don't want to say taken off, but who rules the roost right now, right? If you think of some of the bigger players like an Apple, a Facebook, an Amazon, all tech companies, really, right? It all starts in one data, right? They have the data. They know when to show you a certain ad. They know when you're running low on Tide Pods. They're listening to my phone right now, so I'm probably going to open up Facebook in an hour and have a bunch of Tide Pod ads thrown to me in my feed. But that's what we're talking about. That's the power of data, because data is about knowledge, right? And knowledge is power, right? And so the more that you have, but it has to come from it has to be clean. It has to be a good source, because if it's not, then I'm wasting all my time and efforts on trying to create good results where there was no chance of me doing anything,
A
when the
lower
data is bad.
probability at the very least. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so now that you have that good data, now what can you do with it? And as it relates to AI specifically, right? Mm-hmm. So now that I have, good data, right, what can I do with it? But to get into, Paul's question about ChatGPT. So you asked, I don't know if you're doing a question mark and maybe Paul, you could clarify, are you saying that ChatGPT has a habit of making stuff up? Or are you asking me, does ChatGPT have a habit? Because look, I use it every single day. Because one of the things that I wanted to be when this came out is I definitely want to be on the forefront of knowledge of how to use this tool.
Right.
But I have not seen it where it's made stuff up. Right now, have I seen like incorrect results? Absolutely, like not having complete data. And this is what everyone needs to understand. ChatGPT is not a central intelligence of knowledge that knows everything and has had every single source, right? There is limits, not just from the date, right? Not just from the date of where we're going, but also from from what's inherently built into the system that it's pulling
and
from.
What I found totally hilarious is that one of the key training file for ChatGPT was Reddit. So think about that goofy stuff that you can find there. That's how it learned natural language processing, and that was the key training file. So yeah, it's not everything's correct for sure.
Yeah, you're gonna have stuff. There is bias in it. There's bias in everything because look, AI. This isn't like Skynet AI where it's independent thinking for itself and deciding what's good and what's bad. It's human, right? And it's all developed by humans. And if it's if it's human, then it's fallible, right? And so it's not going to be perfect. There's always inherently in that. If you go back to like when Apple was being built, right, in the early days, and they it's a scene from a movie, but it was right on based off of, as you're creating a computer, I don't want to build something with your imperfections as a human in them, right? And because they're not supposed to have that in it. That's the benefit of having something that is not human, right? It's because you don't get those biases and you don't get that thoughts and feelings that then tend to point you one way or another, right? So, so that's the power of these tools. And so when we talk about now that we have the data and what we're going to be doing with it, what I like to focus on, obviously, as a marketer is the content creation. Look, there's a lot of different cool things you could do, right? But here's where I see going back to what we talked about, where you got to be there before, that life event happens. And you have to do that with good content, right? You have to do that with content. Content marketing is not a nice to have or okay to have, but it's absolutely paramount to your business. Marketing is the lifeblood of any business, right? And everything is marketing. Sales is marketing. Marketing is sales, right? And so, especially in this market being highly competitive, your content has to stand out. It has to be different. And so if we go back to thinking about a database that's now clean, that I could segment, right, people, and think about when you talk about the Ds, you had diapers, divorce, that type of stuff. If I had a segmented database where I had key tags and elements, then I could create content based off of that and hit a specific audience with a specific message, right, which is the key to marketing. And using a tool like ChatGPT to create that marketing is great. And so what I would like to see in the chat from people, because I like to keep this engaged, and feel free to just put it in, after I'm done asking. But if I was to list off these things, if I said right now, as whether it's a lender or if it's a loan officer, right, that's watching this, if I asked you create a hyperlocal ebook, create a 7-day email drip, create 4 weeks of social media posts, create a blog post, and create a real script for Instagram, all on the same topic, like let's say hyperlocal of Alpharetta, Georgia, right? About the guide, like little lesser known areas. If I asked you to create everything that I just mentioned there, scripts, blog content, social media posts, Canva graphics, and an ebook, how long would that take you, right? And so that's what I would like to know. So feel free to put it in the chat. how long would it take you to just create all of that stuff that I just mentioned? So if I said, hey, this is a thing you have to do, go out and do it. How long would it take you to create a lot of that?
Yeah, being a marketer as well, that is a heavy lift for sure. That is not an easy ask. Yeah. The marketing department would be having a meeting immediately after that question.
Yeah. So look, and we're getting it like forever. I would need help. And yeah, Ray, I am not a data scientist. I don't play one on TV either. I am a former engineer. That's what I'm schooled in. That's what I'm certified in. I haven't played that role since I went from being a CMO from being a CIO. But I'm not a data scientist.
We hire.
I love data, and I use it. I use data all the time. Are you a data scientist?
No, we hire them.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then Tim puts my marketing department would take a week using multiple resources, right? So a few hours, right? So when I recently did a session, this about 100 and some loan officers, they were like 2 weeks, a month, all this other stuff on how long would create everything that I just mentioned. And I left some things out, right? So everything that I just mentioned, I was able to do using ChatGPT in under 2 hours, right? And I did it. And I'm talking, and really, it was less time than that. But one, as I was learning how to use some new tools, how to do it. Now I can do it pretty quick, right? All that content.
Wait, you said images also, and you mentioned Canva specifically. That was a piece of.
That usually blows everyone away because they don't think about it. This is what I'm talking about, of really understanding the power of what ChatGPT could do if you know how to use it correctly, right? If you use a little creativity and understand that you just don't want to live in the box, right? You got to break the box a little bit. And so creating those images, social media posts, all of that stuff, all created from one piece of content, and that's just one, right? So I'm able to create a full month program in less than 2 months. Less than 2 hours. And honestly, I could go longer than that. And I could break that piece of pillar content down to multiple pieces of content using it. And so, Ray, I guess Ray's a data scientist. Yeah, Ray, I'm not. So, that is the power of using something like ChatGPT for this, is to build all the content, because it allows you to create a marketing content engine, or content marketing engine, where you could take one idea, one piece of content, and to create it to limitless pieces of content within an hour, right, or so, right? The longest thing took me to make the ebook, but that, again, is because I was learning the tool, right, and I had to do some other things. But Tim, it's Canva, Canva is the tool that I'm talking about, right?
I'm a big fan of using it by itself without ChatGPT. So
exactly, right. And so it, what tends to happen is that in our industry, what do? Is we find someone young, we find someone that maybe is good on TikTok or whatever, and someone that's out of college, and then all of a sudden you hire them as your marketing admin / assistant / receptionist, whatever it happens to be, right? Marketing is important. Marketing, and yes, I am biased because I'm a marketer, but marketing, like I said, is the lifeblood of your business, right? So it is super important, and yet we always put it in the hands of people that are the least knowledgeable of our industry and marketing as a whole, right? And so when you think about the importance of using a tool like ChatGPT, it is going to be the best marketing admin ever, because it allows you to put your mortgage brain into a system that allows to create the content, right? Because how often are you trying to explain what this means, the terms, and all of that other stuff? It allows you to put your tone, it allows you to put your mark, and it learns, right, from these prompts that you do. And I know we're don't have a lot of time, but prompt engineering is absolutely important with this. But when it comes down to it, you have to understand that it's always going to be best with someone that knows your marketing is always be best by someone that understands the industry, as far as hey, I'm a loan officer, I'm marketing to consumers. I'm also marketing to agents, right? And then how do I do that and bring that and, take those tools and use that to create content and do it easier, right? So you'll find it saves you a lot of time, which increases the sum of your income, right? And then it allows you to be more effective and efficient. And that's another thing, is that people always look for efficiency. And they always mistake efficiency for effectiveness. I know a lot of efficient things that are not effective, right? And so you have to understand the difference between the two. So you want efficiency, but you don't want to do it at the sake of effectiveness, right? It's effectiveness first, and then how do I make that efficient? So that's really what you want to focus on with using ChatGPT. And to Trisha, your question is about how AI affects the industry. And I'm guessing when the people put other on the former poll that we did, or the earlier poll that we did about, like, what your concerns are, because this is what I've heard about, like, hey, are they coming to take our jobs or this? Yeah. And what I will tell you right now is tools like ChatGPT AI will absolutely replace average and mediocrity. 100%, no doubt in my mind. Sure. And also know that we're just getting started with this. This isn't a flash in the pan. This isn't a trend. This isn't something like Clubhouse that's like, cool or popular for like 6 months. This is something that we're just scratching the surface on, and it's only going to get more ingrained in everything that we do, right? This is something you do want to be an early adopter on, something you do want to be a first mover in. And so the way that AI, in the way that I look at how does it affect the mortgage industry, it doesn't replace a loan officer. However, I think a loan officer that is powered by AI using, like, in their daily life to reduce mechanical tasks that will free you up to focus on more money making activities. That absolutely will be better. I think AI, actually, I don't think, I know, because it already has happened in some forms or fashion, AI will replace mechanical functions, right? So if you're a processor or an underwriter or anyone in operations, absolutely, AI, machine learning will be something that will take those jobs. Anything that's mechanical, where you're just checking, and please don't at me, don't get angry with what I'm about to say. Checking numbers, yes, there is expertise to it. But what I'm saying is that, let's say if I had a pod of underwriters of, let's say, like 20 of them, if I had real dialed in machine, especially if we're talking about like conventional loan, like A paper conventional, I really don't need someone that skilled, to be honest with you. Right? I mean, they have to be smart.
It's machine learning. Yeah.
You don't have to be an expert.
It's going to figure it out. Yep.
You're going to go down from a 20 person underwriting pod to probably a 5-person underwriting pod with machine learning, AI doing most of it, and then you have 5 expert underwriters that are doing the second look, right? Processing, same things. And again, it depends, right? Some processors do a lot more than just process loans. They're contacting consumers. They're doing a lot of that stuff. AI isn't going to be able to do some of that, but we also got to understand the world we're living in. Like, how much self-service do you do in your daily lives right now? Right? I would say quite a bit, right? You take Uber, you take a Lyft, you do Airbnb, you do the self-checkout in the grocery, store, you're doing your deposit, you're not even going in the banks hardly anymore. So what I'm saying is that we live a self-service on-demand life in a lot of things. We go to Amazon, we have something, I ordered something on Amazon, had no idea it was there like within a few hours, right? And so so that's the life we live in. And so some consumers are, and I could say this from doing Consumer Direct, where we didn't have local, branches or anything like that, even though this Consumer Direct was part of a distributed retail channel. Those consumers, we never met them, right? We didn't do a video call with them. We didn't get on the phone with them to go over their 1003, right? It was, straight, order taking. Right. And,
sure.
and so some consumers are okay with that. So this is where that's where AI affects the mortgage industry. One is power it where it needs to be powered. Understand that it will absolutely take jobs away. It will. From a loan officer perspective, if you're an order taker, then yes, I would be worried about it. But if you're a loan officer that's going out, that's talking with agents, that's in the community, you're the local expert and advisor, you're doing everything. You have multiple streams of income, maybe with cultivating everything that you're doing, then you're going to be okay. Right? And if anything, you're going to use the AI to power those mechanical tasks that you don't want to do, because it takes you away from stuff that you would rather be doing anyway. Right.
So I think Trisha's question is pretty awesome. So good one, Trisha. I think it's also important to step back and say it's not just the mortgage industry that's going to be impacted like this. It's going to be across the board. So when we talk about customer service, right, and the actual chat function or the sales function, the initial outreach and driving of inbound leads, marketing, all these different pieces of the industry are going to be affected by this going forward. So it's not of the mortgage industry and of all industries, because everyone's going to try to leverage this to make things more efficient, because that's what businesses do, is try to make things more efficient and save money. Good question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great question. And exactly, Trisha, is this is about empowering it. And I think we have another poll question here.
Yeah. Should we go to the next poll question here?
Yeah.
So what have you purchased that works best? And that's sort of a goofy question, but from a marketing standpoint and for driving leads and lead gen for your business, that's what we're asking about here. What is driving business? So go ahead and answer on the poll that we just put up there. We have lead lists, pay-per-click, portal leads, something like a Zillow or some other large conglomerate site like that. Farming lists, so building a database for a geography or some other tool or method there.
Yeah, it would be good. It's a good question. Yeah, it is a little wonky the way it's worded, but it really is like as far as when you're purchasing data, right? And that's really what you're doing. Now, when I say purchasing data, it doesn't mean like someone, we all get the emails or the LinkedIn, requests of like, hey, I got, X amount of people. Would that be interesting for you to buy? Blah, blah, blah. But it's just more of like, what are you, because you're always purchasing, whether it's Zillow, whether it's Farm List, you're spending money to acquire data, right? Mm-hmm. And so it'd be good to see like what is working best for you as far as the data. And in the chat, for those of you that are doing other, it'd be good to hear exactly what that other would be if it's not one of these. Obviously, Rebel IQ, this is what we focus on. Is creating a never-ending pipeline, so generating, so we have our traffic sources as well. But this is important because not all data is equal, right? Not all sources are equal. And then also, one thing I like to say is that it's interesting to see understanding that the normal crop of consumers that we would have in a given year, down market, up market, doesn't matter, is different because we're running at a deficit because of one of the interest rate being where they were, and then also doing back-to-back years of double the production, right? So it obviously has thinned the pool quite a bit on top of inventory, affordability, and rates.
Okay, I'm going to close this up. So get your last clicks in if you're going to do the poll. 2 more seconds here. All right, let's see what we've got here. Okay. So the winner is portal leads, but by us, other is the winner actually.
Other, yeah. Which is good. Referral, yeah. Right? And look, that's to me that's important because referrals, and I talk again as a coach, I talk to a lot of loan officers. However, a lot of those people are like, look, those referral sources are completely dried up because you had agents who are hurting worse than loan officers, because loan officers have multiple sources to go after leads, whereas real agents don't. They only have one source of business. Right? Yeah. Houses, right? And so if there's an inventory issue, right, then that's an issue. But from a referral perspective, people that had agents that were doing a few sides a month are doing 1 to none, and then and then as far as like your existing database of like past clients, a lot of those have dried up too, is what I'm hearing, at least in how I'm trying to help. But like that's definitely going to be always one of the higher sources, right? That's going to work best.
So let's we're coming up towards the top of the hour here. So I want to make sure that you are able to kind of share. You mentioned it just a minute ago, never-ending lead source. Can you expand upon that and share a little bit more about what Rebel IQ is up to?
Yeah. So, and for us, what we launched last, in mid-May was a program that we call Rebel Ignite. So it's where we, when it comes to what we do, right, we have lead conversion technology, and so because that's what matters. Anyone could drive traffic. You could get traffic. You get leads anywhere. Right. But it's one is like, how do you convert that? How do you create more conversations? And again, how do you increase the sum of your income? And so from a Rebel IQ perspective, we looked at, all right, what can we do to stand up our growth ecosystem? Because we already have that dialed in. We already have all the tools and the technology, but without traffic, or just like any tool, if you don't use it, it's not really going to do anything for you, right? Whether it's MBS Highway, Revaluate, or whatever, Mortgage Coach, all great tools, all do what they say they're going to do. But if you don't utilize them, then what good are they going to do you? And the same goes with our tools. Right. So really the silver bullet, so to speak, is how do we create consistent traffic for our clients? And so with Rebel Ignite, that's what we do. And that's where we deliver exclusive purchase leads directly to our clients every single month, guaranteed. And the reason we're able to do that is really just through it's really through the market conditions, because it's good news, bad news. Good news for us is that we are now able to use our relationships and because we do have that platform, that's technology that we own, is that we are now able to be a facility for these lead generators that don't have them anymore, because a lot of lenders are not doing this anymore. They only had consumer direct shops that were okay with refi and don't know how to do purchase leads, and so without those facilities, the normal, like the small shop, the non-enterprise, like maybe 100 loan officers or smaller, or small brokers, small mom and pop shops, or single, solopreneurs out there, they couldn't get access to these types of marketplaces because you had to spend a lot. And so now we are able to act as that go-between, that facility for these, take that markup and take that and reduce it and give our clients everything that they need for, a small, monthly fee, because how you're going to win in this market is going to be the people that have the largest databases with the largest amount of trust, right? Those are the people that are going to win, because it's a numbers game. You have to have more conversations, because like I said, referral sources are drying up. Where else are you? Yes, you could do social media, you could pay ads, you could do all these things. None of them are wrong. It's just the point is that you have to have more numbers. So if you're generally saying, like, look, if I have a pull through rate of whatever, and it says like every 10 conversations I have, that it's where you get sales math, right? Every time 10 conversations, that will create, one lead, that, or two leads, out of those two leads, one will become a prospect. I could do a pre-approval. So you have to increase those numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers. So instead of those 10, you got to do 20 or 30, right? So you have to have a consistent source of filling your database to have more at-bats, to have more conversations. Because right? Look, loan officers and lenders, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, is that you probably have a lot of pre-approved people right now that are just looking and waiting, or getting outbid, or just they don't qualify, whatever it happens to be, right? So that's why we created Ignite, is because we wanted to give our clients more at bats to have more conversations consistently. So if you're getting 10 or 20, or we have some people that do 100 a month, and 25% of those don't have buyer or agent representation. So now it gives you an ability to have like an actual value add to agents, instead of just saying, hey, I will do what I'm supposed to do, which is answer my phone, get a good experience, and do everything else. Right, is that you actually go to them saying, hey, as someone that works with me, I have this source of consistent, guaranteed leads every single month, and about a quarter of them aren't represented by an agent. Would love to share those with you, right? And so that's what we're looking about, trying to solve all the challenges with our solutions, right? It's not easy, it's not a light switch. But we are different, and one thing that's different about us is because with Andrew, who's our CEO and founder of Revaluate, he's been in the business, been doing lead generation. Our technology is what built Zillow and Bankrate. That's how they started is using our technology before they took it and went out on their own. And then this is how actually, formerly known as Lead Pops, which you may have heard, we rebranded in the last couple months to Revaluate. And then as far as my background in the industry is, I've been a mortgage executive, wholesale, retail, consumer direct, technology, marketing, and a consultant to fintech and a coach, right? So you take all of that together, it's just we have a high mortgage IQ in this industry, and we take all of that and pour it into our technology, our coaching, and our training to our clients, right? We're not perfect, but at the end of the day, we're not going to stop trying to help people, win this market for the people that are willing to put in the work. And I see that there's a question from Guru. It says, in your opinion, what are the most important considerations or strategies for mortgage professional incorporate AI into business strategies for long-term success?
I think this question depends a lot on your role, right? So how
just say it's a mortgage pro, I'm taking that as a loan officer.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Did you want to?
No, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, look, so when I would say, because considerations is a lot, right? Like one is like I ask every loan officer, are you willing to commit the time to learn how to use it, right? And because like I said, I've been on both sides of the tables. I've led sales teams. I could see that. So when I'm talking to a loan officer, is that, look, I know that we tend to utilize 35%, 40% of any given tool max, right? We don't ever utilize something 100%. So with something like this isn't like you're not sort of pregnant, right? Like you have to be kind of all in on it. And so what I mean by that is that like you have to commit time to learning it, right? So that's the first consideration is, are you willing to commit the time to do this? Because I promise you that if you do leverage technology like this in your everyday life as a loan officer, it will put you ahead of those that don't. There's no way that it could, right? And so I would say for the long-term success, one is that commitment, that consistent, continuous improvement and learning, and this is where you need help, right? Because otherwise you're spending a lot of time trying to do all of this stuff. But that's where this really comes into play, because if you don't do that, if you don't have the time and not willing to do this, then it doesn't really matter. Things are moving too quick, right? Things are moving too quick. So you do need help. You need other people to kind of show you the way. And that depends, right? Some loan officers I know that I've worked with are data geeks. They geek out on all this stuff, right? So they don't need any help. Like they just do this for fun. But what I'll say, the most important consideration is, are you willing to commit the time and effort to put these in there? And the strategy is realizing is like, that, you are a local mortgage expert, right? What could a tool like this do for your time? And that's why I brought up content creation. What could this do for your time to help power some of the places that you're weak in?
So that's awesome. I'm afraid we're up against the time here, but really awesome to chat with you about this, Jason. And obviously we put up here on the screen how you can reach out and continue the conversation. There's a lot of questions in the chat that we did not get to, so apologies for that. But Jason and I are both open for continued discussions. You can reach out to me at revaluate.com/talk. And Jason?
Yeah, marketergpt.com.
So with that, thanks so much, guys, for joining us today, and look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I really, really appreciate your time. And Chris, it's always great, being able to do a webinar with you.
Yeah, awesome. Same, man. Cheers.